Welcome to Inpowered, Mind-Body Inspiration. The mind is the map to wholeness, wellness, health. The heart is the key to genius and inspiration. Join me and my guests as we explore how to release and rewire into who you truly are, unique, whole, and empowered. Please like, share, and subscribe. Spiral up, spiral out. Hi, everyone. Today, we are going to spiral up with Mitra Manesh. Mitra is a mindfulness coach and a UCLA senior educator at the Mindful Awareness Research Center. Mitra has been teaching mindfulness-based wisdom for more than 3.5 decades. She is the founder of Innermap, an innovative new mindfulness app, and she is also the host of Lights On, a podcast offering support for a mindful life. Let me share some of the things I would love to cover with Mitra in this conversation. 1, what the heck is mindfulness, and how did Mitra gain such inner perspective? 2, fear, whether it's fear of death or fear of loss, or maybe we are living in great pain or we've lost a relationship. How does that affect our ability to live mindfully? And how do we get back to a place of peace? And 3, what is peace? What is inner peace? And how do we achieve it? Mitra is a great storyteller and is a wealth of extraordinary life experience to share. Let's see how this spirals out. Enjoy. Welcome, Mitra. So excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Jayne. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's get right into the juicy stuff. What the heck is mindfulness? And how did you get introduced to it? What's your story? Often there's a crisis story or something really interesting how we go within, So take it away.
Crisis story for you. Yeah. So let's start with what mindfulness is. And mindfulness is a very popular and fashionable and sexy word these days. And there are many different definitions for it. But the definition that I have coined and I teach through is a simple one, that mindfulness is being aware and accepting of our present moment experience with a sense of curiosity and compassion. So I used 5 words, basically. 1 was awareness, then it was presence and acceptance, curiosity, and compassion. I'm going to just quickly explain that so that it's clear. Awareness basically means knowingness, that I know what I'm saying. I'm not unprogrammed on autopilot. And the second one was presence. Presence meaning being here, being now. When our body and our attention meet at the same time, we're present. I'm speaking to you and my attention is also here, because I could also be thinking about the past. I could be thinking, oh, last night I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have said that. Or I could be in the future saying, oh, after this, I have a meeting. What should I be doing and saying in that meeting? These 2 places are normally where we are, the past and the future, and very rarely in the present moment. I say that we are the citizens of the present moment and visitors of the past and future, and that's how we can be healthier. But having said about presence, what about present not being pleasant? So what do I do now? And that's when the acceptance comes in. And this is not a legal acceptance, but it's like knowing that these are the facts. I would love for today to be Friday afternoon, but it is a Monday and it's a working day. And I need to accept that in that sense of knowing my facts. And then curiosity is when we want to know, like your whole podcast is about really wanting to know what other people, what your guests know. And that's a curiosity, sense of curiosity that we want to cultivate and really motivate in ourselves. Having said all of that presence and acceptance and awareness, we're also dealing with a lot of hardships, both internally and externally. And compassion comes in handy, which really means being and staying kind at difficult times for personally for me and difficult times of other people in the world. So these are the 5 elements of acceptance. I'm going to take a breath and go to the second aspect of your question. And you said, how did I get into that? Well, I wish I could tell you that I was so enlightened. I just wanted to do this and was interested in a rich journey, but that wouldn't be the truth. The truth is that I had to. I got to a place, I'm originally from Iran. I literally walked out of my country of birth and with no visa and very little money, about $1,000, and didn't know where I was going, what I was doing. Everything was unknown, pretty similar to now, except worse. And I felt like the choice was to really go for medication or meditation, sort of speak. And then meditation was my way into the mindfulness world, even though meditation is not just mindfulness is not just about meditation, but it's one tool of, being mindful. But that's how I got into mindfulness. And I realized that there is another way that I can work with what I have, and that is an internal way. So I started meditating, I started learning, I started improving, I started taking charge of my emotions, which were really wild at that time, because when I was having fun and it was good, I was feeling guilty because everybody back home was not so. And if I was miserable, I was thinking, what have I done? Why did I leave? Why am I so lonely? What do I do with my life? So that's how I got into mindful living through meditation and then expanded on it.
Wow. So you left your homeland and were in a situation where you were completely alone, and probably it was pretty frightening. No family.
No family, and it was frightening. It was really frightening. I first lived in Europe for a while. It was better because I lived in Paris. There were a lot of Iranians living in Paris, so it was a little bit easier. But then we moved to Australia, which was really remote and away from the culture that I had come from. And there, talking about loneliness like to the bones. And so a few years, my kids were born in Australia and we lived there. And then I separated from my then husband, and he wanted, because his family lived in Toronto, he wanted to move to us to Canada from Australia. And I had the custody of my children, but I realized that I have no right to separate them from their father. So I moved to Canada, to Toronto, really knowing no one, because he had family, he had friends. I had really no one. 2 kids, single mother, no job, no friends, no family. And I remember walking on streets of Toronto. I remember sitting. I'm not fond of shopping malls. I don't feel good in them. But I remember sitting in Eaton Center, it was called then, I don't know what it's called now. And I was just people watching and thinking, oh, they look like they could be a family member. They look like they're like mother and, daughter, and just enjoying seeing people, that there is a potentiality for me one day to have family, and letting go of my loneliness, because it was just so lonely. But it was also so beautiful and rich.
Yeah. Well, loneliness to the bone is very painful, isn't it? And I think we've all experienced it at times. So what was the first thing you did to ease that?
I think the first thing, when I remember when I was in Toronto, first thing I did was to really go back to my practice and know that, first of all, this is temporary, because that's a whole idea of life. We forget the sense of impermanence of it, that this too will pass. This too shall pass, as they say. And then outward. So there's the inwardly work that we have to do, and then there is the outwardly work that we need to do. Inwardly, I reminded myself that, this too will go and I'll be fine. And outwardly, I started, just finding friends, and I have beautiful friends to this day, and looking for a job, of course, which I did, and establishing a home and getting busy with life, because that's one of the ways you can actually deal with your loneliness, just activity, meaningful activity, and also with understanding and constantly reminding yourself. I remember I would be cleaning and cooking and talking to myself because there was nobody else to talk to, and I would just talk to myself. I'll be fine. I know what to do. I'll find a way. I'm not the only one. And these are all principles of mindfulness, that we're not lonely in this world, even though we truly, and I know my clients now, they tell me, oh, but Mitra, you don't know, mine is different. At that moment of pain, we truly believe we are the only one, and no one has ever suffered like this, which is okay, but it's not okay because then we feel isolated. Believe me, even though our pain might be different, the look of it, the visual of it, in their essence, in the suffering, we really are not lonely. Right at this point, as I'm suffering, there is somebody in the world that is suffering along with me the same way. And it makes it easy when I start sending good wishes for them. And it sounds like these are all nice, new agey things. But now, as you know, I teach at UCLA, and there is evidence, there is now science is coming to meet these practices that for thousands of years, the teachers were talking about, the wisdom, mainly from the East, have been talking about. That when you start saying, oh, may all the, lonely people in this world feel a bit of relief, you instantly feel it yourself. May they find their way to deal with this. You feel like, okay, there's hope for me. It really makes it easy when you go out and beyond yourself to sort of come back to yourself in a much more kinder and more meaningful way.
Right. It's so brilliant. And so you're seeing some science behind it now. I know myself, in the deepest moments of sadness or grief or loneliness, I've asked, how can I help? How can I help, universe? And that is immediately doors have opened, and then there's things to do. Action is very important.
Absolutely. Service is an amazing experience, an amazing exchange of energy. And service doesn't need to be, just in action. It could be also in sending loving kindness. They call it, that's why prayer has really outlasted many, many religions. There are many people who are not into their faith or religion that they come from, but they all believe in that what we call prayer, which is really, really considering and including other people and sending them good wishes. I don't call it prayers because people are very sensitive to these things, but really it is prayers. It is like me thinking, I don't even need to know them. And you can start anywhere. You can start with yourself. You can start with somebody that you know. Where I teach is across from the Ronald Reagan UCLA Hospital. So I always encourage, when we had in-person classes, I encourage the participants to start there. May all the, patients in this hospital, that's easy. They can start there. They say, oh no, I can't do it for myself. I say, okay, do it for them. Or like you've seen something in the news, there's always something happening somewhere that it's not very good. And you can say, like right now, you can say, may people in, wherever, fill in the blank, have some relief. May they find their way. May they be okay. May their loved ones be okay. And immediately your energy shifts and goes to a different place. And from that place, then you can help yourself much better.
Yes. Yeah. It's quite magical. So I love that. Let's talk about fear itself and how that influences our life. I believe the fear of death is an unconscious control force that we were very unaware of, but I have listened to some of what you said on that, and I love it, how, we're afraid of endings. So yeah, just tell us more about that.
Sure. So I taught a class, I actually designed a class on how to mindfully end things. And by that, I mean anything. You've seen people like being in a restaurant, having a good time. It's hard for them to say goodbye because, in my view, ending anything, even a friendship, a relationship, a job, anything that we're doing that doesn't feel right, and we know we still have problems, as you can see around you. We have problems ending it. It's a culture that, first of all, has always, especially the Western culture, always encourages us how to start things, how to initiate things, which is great. But nobody teaches us the art of ending. And one of the reasons, in my view, that is so is because ending, the moment I say ending, most people, including myself, think about, the ultimate ending, which we call death. And death is such a no topic that we don't want to go there. It's a fascinating relationship we have with death. It it fuels our fundamental fear, but we never ever want to talk about it. It's like, imagine having a very important person in your life that you never ever want to see or ever want to talk about. Well, that would be very difficult to do, but that usually is the case. And that's the relationship we had with fear. So why is it so difficult? Well, culturally, traditionally, we don't talk about death. I know we have a saying in Persian, the saying is, God forbid if such and such dies. And I say, well, what do you mean, God forbid? I think God created death. Didn't he do that? And everybody laughs and says, okay, yeah, maybe so, but still, God forbid. We really are disconnected with the experience of death. We believe it's something that happens to, like, our neighbors and maybe really far relatives, but it doesn't happen to us, or definitely, maybe to our family members, but definitely not to us personally. And it's a funny word. I'm about to actually teach a class on mindful aging, and one of the major sessions is about death. Once we befriend the experience of death, then it no longer is this monster that we're afraid of. We can work with it in a far more skillful way. So why is it so difficult? Because most of us may see, at least some of us, see our life only in its physicality. Well, the life that we're talking about, that energy that is animating this body and activating this body as I'm speaking, that energy never ever dies. What will die is this physicality. So if as I'm talking to you, I drop dead, it's possible. It has happened before. The body will be still here. I will look exactly the same. What is missing is that energy that occupies this body has left this body. But now science, thank God, is there to support us. Energy never dies. We know that. Energy only changes forms, but it never dies. So when we understand that thing that I call Mitra is really that energy. It's not this finger. This is not me. It is the energy that I call Mitra. And that energy never dies. I do not really want to get into the discussion of it here because there's nobody to ask me questions. I love questions, but there's nobody here to say I disagree with you, and you probably agree with me. But the question is this, the question that I want people to ask themselves. Then what am I fearing? What is it that I'm fearing? And if you really go down to it, is our attachment to this world. And it is because we don't know or we don't believe that there might be something better than this. So imagine I'm traveling and I'm going to, Bradley or wherever airport that might be the airport that I need to be leaving from. So I say goodbye and I leave. But that's not end of me. It's end of the experience that I had, say, in Toronto or in Vancouver or in Los Angeles. But that's not the end of me. I'm just going to have another experience, hopefully even better and at a higher sort of vibration. But let's not get into that. I don't want to get into the soul journey. I just want to talk about the fact that the fear comes from the fact, one, we don't acknowledge it, and we've made a monster out of death. Just think about all the movies that we've seen as a child, that death comes and it's just like this horrible looking, chases you around, as opposed to death comes and offers you another experience. So it's that cultural, traditional way of looking at death as if it's a punishment. And people say that such and such was such a good person, but then she died, as if like good people don't die. It's like, it's got nothing to do with anything. I could be a monster. I could be an angel. I still die. So really evaluating our ideas and beliefs around death, allowing the alternative to be there, that maybe there is another way of working with death, and then taking that into the main fear that we have in life, which is ultimately dying, and as a result, not being able to deal with things that end. I mean, just think about this pandemic. What ended was what we called our normals. Our normals ended. I no longer went to my office. I no longer went to the classes at UCLA. I no longer socialized with my friends. And that was the death of my normals. And it was very hard to handle. But then you create other things. You know that death of anything is the birth of something. And then you focus on the birth as opposed to the death. And then it makes a complete difference in the way you experience death.
Yes, and being excited in the new birth that's coming, and so many people have transformed through this COVID experience, and just to not be stuck in the vortex, which you can get stuck in, can't you? Like, you can get stuck in a vortex there, or if a relationship is ending or a job is ending, and focus on what could have been, instead of moving forward. I see people in such pain over relationships that aren't working. Any advice there?
Yeah, I think it's with anything, really ending up anything, there are two questions that need to replace the current question, because we usually ask, why me? And why did it happen? And I taught another class on change your question, change your life. We need to change that question. So if a relationship is ending, the question is, what are my learnings from this? What did this tell me about me? And how can I move forward to the next one? And I don't mean that you go immediately to the next relationship, but really allowing that question to be alive, instead of saying, why is this happening to me? And why did it end? It ended, or it's ending because it's not serving you. That's the answer. That's a very general and applicable answer to anything that is ending, because it's not sustainable and because it's not working. That's why. And then the next question is, what are my learnings? So I really make my clients like sit down and write with their hands on the paper what their learnings is, because they want to go over and say, I learned. I said, okay, what did you learn? I learned that I shouldn't, and usually the learning is like very reactive. I shouldn't trust people. I said, no. That couldn't be the learning. That's a very reactive statement. The learning is that I need to know myself and choose better. That's the learning, not that I shouldn't trust people. I mean, that's not a learning. That's really a faulty conclusion. So what have I learned is the first step. The second one is, how do I take these learnings and apply it into the next relationship? Okay, because there are two different things. And who do I need in my life then differently than I had? And the third step is then taking action. And between these steps, especially between the second and the third one, taking action, there might be need for some time to really really get to know yourself better and not jump from one to another. So these are the steps that I would, in a very general way, not knowing what the situation is, that I would take my clients through. What are your lessons? What did that tell you? True lessons, not reactive ones. 2, what does that mean? How are you going to apply that? And then 3, taking actions. Okay, now that I know that these are things that are important to me, and this is a kind of person that I'm looking for, what are the chances of me meeting them in these places? What do I do? What is the action I take? So that, because we're physical beings, we need to take actions. So you're really mixing the inner and outer and moving forward in a very wiser way.
Yeah, and so important not to jump into the next frying pan and the same situation again without healing what is going on inside. And it usually comes from, a teaching that has to happen about ourselves and loving ourselves. So just to be aware of that.
Yes, or knowing ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes. And most of the time, honestly, I mean, it's knowing ourselves. I say getting into relationship, it's like me going to a store and saying, give me a really nice pair of shoes. And they say, what is your size? I say, I don't know. What's the occasion? Is it for walking? Is it for a cocktail party? I don't know. Just a really good pair of shoes. What are the chances that I get a pair of shoes that will really suit me and serve me? Very little. It's the same thing with relationship. Who am I that I want to find a match for me? It's a very important question that usually goes unanswered when we jump from one relationship to another. I have a very successful, handsome celebrity client. My office is in Beverly Hills, so I have a lot of who's who of this area that usually come to me. And he was talking about, he was ending a relationship, and he said, Mitra, it's just, I got to do another one. And he was talking as if like this is another car that he was renting. He said, I'm quite savvy. I know exactly about women and relationship. I said, oh, you do? He said, yes. I said, I don't think so. He said, why? I said, because you don't have a lot of experience. He said, I've dated 20 women since I've met you, been coming to you alone. What do you say? I said, oh, no, you've been dating one woman in 20 bodies, because you go in the same way, you come out the same way, and you don't want to learn anything about yourself or about the relationship that you've been in. So you just jump from one to another, and you think you've had many experiences. That's not, you can have experiences without getting experienced. I can mess up 20 relationships exactly the same way and tell you I'm so experienced. I've been with 20 people. No. What have you learned is the question. I may have only one relationship and really learn and get into the next relationship in a knowing, in a very sort of aware and knowing way, and make a really good relationship out of that. But if I haven't learned anything, if I haven't known myself through it, then I will repeat the same or new mistakes over and over again.
Right? That's so brilliant. Um, I just love it. When, I think it may have come from many lifetimes, but in this lifetime, what I really wanted in a relationship was someone that would allow me to flourish and not to, worry too much about, to be able to flourish in a way that was very inward. So I wouldn't have to worry too much about outward things, but I could really support that. And that's what you get when that's what you want from the very beginning. But it's always a journey.
Clarity. You had clarity, obviously. You had clarity. You knew that growth and self-independence is important for you, and you got that.
Yeah.
So that clarity is very important. Most people don't have that clarity.
But I have the memories of past lives that were very painful. So I think it came earned. You know.
It always does. It always does. But what I'm saying is, yes, it always does. It comes. But I'm saying with awareness, it doesn't need to come from pain, because there are two ways I can learn. I told you I got into mindfulness because of pain, basically, but I could have gotten into it because of my desire and my awareness of that possibility and potentiality for growth. So it doesn't need to be. And these days, I mean, there was a time that what you and I are talking about was only available to a select few. But if you see these days, really awareness, awakeness, and growth is available so inexpensively, and I mean in every sense, not just financially, to everybody. So there is no excuse. I mean, there is the knowing and experience of Einstein of this world, the Mother Teresa's of this world, the Gandhis of this world, the Jesus of this world. They're all available to us. And why would I wait till I have pain to get there? Because I can awaken myself. So there is the pain road, and then there's the awaken road. Pain goes and meets awakening at one stage. But if I go through awakening, I may not even need to go through the pain.
Right. And yeah, it is easier now and easier than it's ever been. And I think things are speeding up in that direction.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's so important too to learn from these people, but not give away your own inner power. Like
Exactly. And you turn them, instead of, because usually we see them as enemies when something ends, especially a romantic relationship or even like, friendship. Really see them as teachers, because that completely changes your focus. Instead of me trying to tell you how bad this person is, I'm really trying to tell you how much I have learned and grown through this experience. So the emphasis and the focus is on the growth, as opposed to how bad it is, because usually people want to prove to you when they separate from each other, when something ends, I want to prove to you how bad this person is, so that to justify the decision I have made, as opposed to really learn from my experience and let the person be who they are. It's not about bad and good. It's really about suitability. It's not, I mean, I don't think anybody is bad in their essence. I think they're just not suitable for me, or I may not be suitable for them. It's always about the question of suitability. Who is, and that's why they call it my match. Who is the person that is best for me to be with, as a friend, as a spouse, as a partner, as a work partner? That really changes the question, as opposed to who is bad. Everybody asks me, are they bad? Are they bad? I say, I don't think so. No. But they say, why don't you work with them? I say, oh, they're not a good partner for me to work with, but I don't think they're bad. I don't think people are bad. That's why I'm not their friend. I just think they're not suitable for me.
Yeah, it's like we're all a piece of a puzzle, and the ones that are going to fit in next to you and build with you are the ones that you should connect to. But it's not like the outer reaches of the puzzle are bad.
Beautifully put. That's right. That's a great visual for that. Yes.
So, inner peace. I know you've spoken about, where we need to move in peace on this planet and what it would look like. It really starts within each of us, this inner peace. Just talk to me about, how does one reach a place of inner peace?
Inner peace is a state of being which is activated by a state of believing. We really need to see a bigger picture of this life so that we can have inner peace. When I believe that certain things need to be a certain way and there's no negotiation, or I believe my past and future are the same, or I believe that I need to control things in order to have some, whatever it is that I want, then inner peace becomes an impossibility. We really need to reevaluate our belief system. If we really see this lifetime for what it is, which is a pure experience, for the pleasure of experience, and not see it as a problem that I need to solve, not see it as the only thing that I have, not see it as something that I need to really control and make sure everybody listens to me, then inner peace is really something that I can achieve. It's not that far from me. If you look at our suffering, and I'm separating suffering and pain from each other, because pain is what happens. Suffering is my relationship to what happens. So if one thing happens, say when the pandemic happened, okay, say you and I were neighbors or we're sisters. Well, we may be experiencing the same pain, but how we interact with it really is what determines the level of our suffering. Your suffering, I'm sure, was very different than mine, and ours was very different than other people. So when we see our role, when we see how much of a say we have in what area, then inner peace becomes far more accessible. I see that I cannot change the world, but I can change my relationship to the world. I can see that there are things that are out of my command, but what I do with them are in my command. So I let go of the control, which is the negative aspect of command, and I focus on how I can really work with what I have. Inner peace is really, to me, understanding the bigger picture of life and understanding our role, a very important role that we have, so that we can work with what we have in a peaceful way and not have any unrealistic perfectionist ideas about life. People talk about things and I think, where did you get that from? Like, where did that come from? I don't even know where these ideas of life, either professional life or family life or parenting life, where do they come from, these unrealistic things? It really is a wonderful game we're playing. We're a bunch of kids in the park, and we're taking things way too seriously than we need to. And when we see that, then life becomes far more interesting and inner peace far more accessible.
Yeah. So it's about just the inner knowing and knowing the next tiny step, whatever that is, and not trying to change massive things or not trying to be perfect. Yeah.
Perfect does not exist.
Yeah.
Just think about what perfect means. Perfect means there is no room for improvement. And we know such a thing doesn't exist unless it's completely dead. So perfect means dead. If I told you I know everything I need to know, I've experienced everything I needed to experience, and then you say, okay, so it's time to go, perhaps. It's end of this. But when I say, it's so exciting, I'm learning every day. I get up, honestly, and I'm 63 years old. I get up and I think, ooh, what can I learn? That to me is life. That to me is evolution. And when I'm not there, I try to get there, because that is the true life. But when I think I know it all, it's like, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to listen to myself. I'm not going to do anything else. That is the true death. The true death is feeling that I have arrived at perfect. Perfect is an illusion. And if we're chasing perfect, we will never arrive there. But I have a substitute for perfect, and that is my best. What is my best, as opposed to what is the perfect life for me? My best takes into consideration and account my human condition. So if I'm tired, if I'm unwell, if I have 5 things to do that are very important, my best will be very different than another day that I don't have those responsibilities. So I always invite my clients and students to ask themselves, what's the best I can do under fill in the blank circumstance, right? Because then I will let go of perfect and I become practical. I say, okay, I have an hour. I have this budget. This is what I can do. This is the best I can do. But if I look for the perfect, I will never really arrive there, and I will suffer, more importantly. So change the question of perfect to best. And the best has my best, meaning with this conditions and circumstances, today being the day it is, me being the age I am, the world being the way it is, what is my best? And then I improve on my best a little bit more. And then I think perfect will no longer be the enemy of my best.
Right? Because when you're racing toward perfect, you're totally missing the moment.
Yes.
And you can catch yourself in that all the time. Like this morning, I had to unexpectedly muck the barn. And in my mind, I was racing toward everything I had to do today. And I said to myself, just stop, because I actually enjoy mucking the barn. It's a very peaceful time and a lot of physical, beautiful things happen. And I just had to remind myself to be in the moment, which is so, so important.
Yes. And we all suffer from I call it from super person syndrome, that we think there's somebody out there that can do everything perfectly. And it's funny, sometimes I had two couples of my clients, and they were brothers. I didn't know because they're brothers from mother's side, so their last name wasn't the same. And one day I realized, oh my God, this couple is talking about the couple that I know. And in the view of this couple, the other couple was perfect. They said they have no fight. They always this, they're the best friend, all these, things that we exaggerate. And I'm thinking, okay, who is this couple that you're talking about? And then they talked about one thing, they named something. I thought, oh my God, I know the other couple. And it's funny that all the problems that I knew about them, and I'm thinking, I don't think we're talking about the same couple. I had to ask one question to make sure that that's the same couple. Of course, I couldn't reveal the fact that I'm seeing them, but I really realized that that's what people do in their minds. They exaggerate the achievements and the whatever it is that other people that they think they have, and then they exaggerate their own shortcomings, and then they start feeling bad about themselves. What if I said, okay, and there may be some perfect and happy people or happier people out there, and that's fine. My question is, how do it's like your question would have been this. The first step, I love 3 steps. The first step is the awareness of the fact that you were going there, that you say, oh, I'm going to the future, I'm over planning, I'm over criticizing, I'm doing something over. That's the first step, awareness. 2, asking yourself, do I have other options? Is there another option, at least one more option to what I'm doing? And the answer always is yes, there is another way of being. And then 3 is, what can I go towards that? What can I do to go towards that? So 1 is the awareness. 2 is creation of options, because in autopilot, we have no options. And the 3rd one is to really take action on it and say, okay, so I'm going to go finish this, enjoy my podcast that I'm doing, and then attend to them one by one as day progresses.
Right? That's brilliant. And what makes us think that the time that we're, mucking a stall or cleaning out our laneway or doing our laundry is less important than, what we put on a pedestal as being, more important?
The reason we do that is because we are really evaluating our time outwardly, not inwardly. What brings the value is the presence of you to what you're doing, not what you're doing. So when we think everything is outwardly, I compare it, is it more important to talk to Jayne, or is it more important to do this? What is really important is for me to be present to them. When I'm present, like I'm as present, I'm not going to say fully because that's an impossibility scientifically, but I'm very present to our conversation right now. I think that's rich. That's very rich for me. And believe it or not, it is just as rich when I'm connecting to my daughter, and as rich when I'm connecting to fill in the blank, because the richness is coming from human connection and the presence that I'm experiencing with you. It's not about the hierarchy of people. Same thing with what we're doing. It's not that, laundry is not as important as writing a novel. It's like, how is that affecting me as a human being? It's the energetic exchange that I have with it. I could enjoy doing anything. I mean, I can wash my bathroom and be very present to that experience and truly enjoy it. It really is about your inner state of being, not necessarily outer aspect of what you're doing.
Right. And I can feel your presence 100%. And, true listening comes through the heart, and I really feel it. It's so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. And I feel yours, by the way.
One, one story I heard you share that I think really sums this up and is so beautiful is, the story when you were young and you had a friend that was dying, and just the presence you had and the joy you shared with him when a lot of people, didn't know how to handle it. Can you just share that story? Because I think it sums up so much of what we've been talking about.
Yes. And that goes back to the question of death. Actually, it's a beautiful story. It's called Death. I have a mindful living app called Innermap, and all the teachings are through stories. And this story is one of those stories. These are stories that I learned or lived through or have heard. But this one was my story. We were about 12 years old, and he was my best friend, and we were neighbors. And he was diagnosed with cancer, and stopped going to school and went through therapy, and they had to shave his head, and they gave him medications. He was all, puffed up. He didn't look good. And I remember I was the only contact he had with the young world. Everybody was adult around him, and he wasn't going to school. So I made it my sort of thing to do after doing my homework, and I would go home and do my homework so I could go and see him. And one night, as we were talking, he said, let's talk about my death. And I was just so surprised, talking about past lives. Oh my God, just imagine what a power a 12-year-old must have to be able to talk about his death, admit that he's dying, and then be willing to talk about it. And I was really surprised. And I said, oh, he said, yes. And we started making up stories. And now I know that wasn't probably a story, it could be the truth, that how the other dimensions of life look like. And this was just pure childhood fun. And we said, like, when we die, we go to this dimension that, the moment we ask for something, it happens. We fly through the air, and it was really interesting, the world that we created, I think, to just take away the fear that he had. And also maybe he had a deeper knowing. Maybe that was the truth. And he said that adults want to glorify death. They're all afraid of their own death. That's why they don't want to talk about my death. And he asked me to, I get emotional talking about it. He asked me to promise him that I will never feel pity for him, no matter how sick he gets and how different he looks. And I promised him that. And he promised me that he will come and greet me when I die and I go to the other world. And that was the beautiful exchange we had. I stayed with him until end of his life. And I truly never felt pity for him, because I really, as a child, I now know, understood his greatness and how he was above death and the fear of death. And I was there to the last minute. And he really, really was an amazing teacher for me. He made death okay for me. And I don't know if you know, I've been in the room of many of people that I know, especially clients, that ask me to be there, and their family members call me, and I'll hold the room as they leave this world and they leave their bodies. And that's the reason that I could do that, because the fear of death was gone. And also the fact that I realized that it's a journey and I can hold the place. So I fulfilled my promise to my friend, and I'm hoping that he fulfills his promise to me when I arrive to the other dimension. I hope that he comes and greets me.
Such a beautiful story, Mitra. And as a child to have that bravery to walk beside someone like that and share what could be, and and add a dimension of excitement to it was such a gift. It really
was, and I think all the greatness was his.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, so just think about having that power as a young person, knowing what's going on, knowing that you're going to go and being okay with that. And I think that was really, truly amazing. So I'm very grateful for my experience with my friend, and wherever he is, I hope he's evolving and growing.
Yeah. And then for you to be able to reach down into that place of knowing and heart and power for the rest of your life, like just in a beautiful exchange. Mitra, thank you so much. You're a beautiful soul. Can you tell people how to find you and a little bit about Innermap?
Sure. Thank you, Jayne. By the way, I wanted to say, so are you. I really feel you, even though we're virtually meeting. That energy comes through. The best place to find me is my name, mitramanesh.com. And the app that I'm talking about, we made it so inexpensive to be available to everybody. It's only available in app stores. And because we only have done the iOS version of it, and it's called Innermap, all one word, INNERMAP, Innermap. And they can find out more about the app by going to innermap.me or go straight to the App Store. And I offer many classes, and now they're all virtual. And I also have a store with previously recorded classes if people are interested. And they can go to mitramanesh.com/courses for live classes and /store for pre-recorded classes. And I also see clients privately, and that's mindfulness-based coaching that I do. All of that is on my website. And I'm really grateful for the time you gave me today. And I hope that I've helped somebody who's listening and opened a door for someone.
Oh, yes. And, such beautiful resources. That app, just to have it, if you're going through something painful or difficult, could lead you out. So just beautiful. Thank you so much. And for everyone out there, yes, for everyone out there, don't give away your power to anyone else, and be the creator of your own life. Just spiral up, spiral out.